Hi, and welcome back to Boston Food Diary Decanted. I want to take a minute today and really walk through a wine tasting with you. It feels so often we read wine reviews or we start talking about wines, and there's a lot of words that get thrown around and different levels within those words that might make it a little confusing. So I wanted to break it down and really look at a certain wine and let you know what those are. And we'll continue to do this throughout all of the episodes of Decanted as we continue to get into different styles of wine. But today I'm sitting outside and I figure this would be a great bottle. This is the Martin Kodak's 2011 Albarino. And I was actually introduced to this wine earlier this year at a press dinner, and it kept being referred to as wine of the sea because it pairs so nicely with seafood. And we'll talk more about pairings in future episodes as well. But here, let's start off here with the 4 S's of wine tasting. The first is sight. And so what we want to do when we're tasting and looking at wine is just tip your wine glass over just about a 40-degree angle. And what that's going to do is allow the wine to fold over on itself in the sides of the glass. And we can start looking at color there. So first off, just make sure that it's a clear wine. There's no haze or cloud to it. And just take a look, because that can be an indicator of something's gone wrong. Sometimes it's just that it's an unfiltered wine, but sometimes it can be the first indicator of something that's not quite right with the wine. So take a quick look at that. And then we want to look at the color. And color is the first indicator of age. Here I'm getting a bright yellow color. There's no brown and there's no green. Green would be a very youthful wine. Brown would start to look at an older wine. This is right in the middle. I'm not seeing either. So this is a nice, perfect color, I'd say, for a 2011. Not getting too old and still not, a 2013 or a 2012, which may still show signs of that green. And then the last thing that you want to look at is the second to last, actually, excuse me, I'm going to go back, is the color intensity. And really that's just looking at the depth of color. And here I'm seeing a fair amount of color in this wine. It's not a bright, extremely overt color, but it's there. It's not something that's watered down. So I would give this a medium plus color intensity. And then we also look at the legs or the tiers of the wine. And you can do that just by a quick swirl of the glass and then seeing how the liquid comes down the sides of the glass. A fast move or a slow move. And this has tiers, but they're very quickly moving. They're not super thick. So that's just another piece of information about the wine that we'll continue to talk about. So then we want to swirl and sniff, and those are the next 2 S's. The swirl, basically what that does is it gets air into the glass and then releases the aroma out. And wine glasses are designed so that they can do the swirl. That's kind of the reason why they are this globe shape. So do a quick swirl. You can either do it on a table or you can do it in the air if you're super talented. Sometimes I'm not. And then what we want to do is see how far away from your nose the scent is entering into your nostrils. That's going to be the intensity of the scent. So I'm getting it right around here, like it was a little mustache there. I'm getting it right there. And I'm already getting some very clear flavors. So I'd say the intensity of the wine, of the scent of the wine, is probably around a medium plus as well. So we're kind of in that medium plus range with both intensities now. And that'll be important later on. But so what we want to look at here is in that scent, what are we smelling? The first thing that's jumping out of the glass at me is lemon. I'm getting fresh lemon. Like I just took a lemon, cut it in half, and it's just wafting citrus at me. So that's what I'm getting first. It's backed up very nicely with green apple, that tart green apple that you want to cut, and it's nice and juicy. You want to throw it in an apple pie. That's the next color or the next scent that I'm getting out of it. I'm getting a little stone fruit as well, maybe a hint of peach or nectarine. And then I'm also getting something slightly floral. It's very slight, but I am getting something like a honeysuckle in the background. It's adding kind of a sweetness to its nose. So those are the next things that I'm getting. The last thing that you want to look at in terms of scent is its cleanliness. You want to make sure that it's a clean smell. And what we're looking for here is it doesn't smell like a wet dog or like old moldy newspaper. Those are the things that can be indicators that it's corked or gone bad. But this here is nice and clean. So then we want to take a sip. Now when you sip wine, the first things you want to do is be prepared that when you sip in wine for the first sip, your taste buds go a little crazy. So it's hard to tell anything from the wine in terms of acid or flavor profiles from the first sip. So we're going to look at body and we're going to look at sweetness level on the first sip. So just sip it in and let it sit on your tongue for a moment and then let it fall naturally into your mouth as it would rather than where you might place it. So do that, and I'll do it as well. So the first thing that we can see here is that this is a dry wine. There may be some flavor components that are on the sweeter side, but they're not actually a sweet wine. This is a nice dry wine. You can kind of feel it on your tongue. And then the next thing that we look at is the body of the wine. And what that refers to is how much the wine coats the inside of your mouth. Can you kind of feel it on your teeth and in your tongue, how it coats that mouth? And we refer to this as the milk test, because you can really compare wine to skim milk all the way on up to heavy cream in terms of how it coats your mouth. This is not a skim milk. This is a little bit more than that. I'm feeling like this is coating my mouth. So I would put this in a 1% to 2% range. And in wine speak, it's a medium minus body. It's not crazy taking over your mouth, but it is there. It has a presence. All right, now we're going to take a second step, and here we're going to start to look at acid. Now, how you tell acid is how much saliva accumulates underneath your tongue. So are you feeling like there's too much liquid in your mouth once you've swallowed still? So let's take a quick look at that. Yeah, I feel immediate acid with this wine. It's immediately puddling some liquid underneath my mouth in terms of saliva, and something that I need to take a minute and think about before speaking. It's a pretty high acid wine. So I put this in a medium plus acidity, just because I know that it is definitely ranking there in terms of acid. Acid is really important with pairing, so we're going to talk about that as we get further into pairing ideas. But it's really good to kind of keep that in mind as to what acid is. The next thing that we want to look at is the flavor profile of the wine. And what I'm getting on this flavor profile is very similar to what I got on the scent or on the nose, which is, again, a lot of fresh lemon. A fair amount of green apple is definitely in there, as well as some stone fruits. Again, I'm getting a little bit of peach, and then I'm also getting a little bit of that floral honeysuckle. So I'm matching basically what was on my nose as well. And then finally what we want to look at is the flavor intensity in regards to flavor, and that is how much flavor are you getting out of it. And I actually got a fair amount. I mean, that's not a bad palate. So I put it in the medium range for flavor intensity. Now, for those of you who have heard of wine tastings before, you might be asking why I'm not talking about tannin. And just note now, and we'll talk more about tannin as we get into some red wines, but tannin really doesn't exist in whites. It does occasionally, but for the most part, it's negligible. So we're not going to talk about it in terms of tannin in this wine. It's not there. If I find you a white that has tannin in it, I will raise the bell. But right now, we're going to stick with there's no tannin in this wine. So then the last piece that we're going to look at in terms of how the wine is tasting is the finish of the wine. And what that means is how long do the good flavors of the wine stay in your palate, in your mouth, before washing away. So that's not any tang or anything that's kind of just alcohol. We're talking about the actual flavors lasting in your mouth. So what we're going to look at here is, I would say, about a 7 to 10 minute finish on it. It's not the longest finish, but it's right in that medium range. So what we then do is we look at the balance of the wine, or at least it's the order that I go in. We look at the balance of the wine in terms of how everything's shaking hands with each other. Is anything out of proportion? The acid kind of plays in line with the flavor profile, the body, the finish. Everything is kind of in line with each other. And you'll note that as I've been talking about this wine, I keep saying medium, medium minus, medium plus. It kind of means everything's in line with each other. There's dips and valleys and whatnot, but for the most part, everything's in line. So this is a very well-balanced wine. So now what we can really look at is its overall finish and what we would grade the wine. So I would give this a very good wine. Everything's in balance, nothing's out of play. It represents well for what it is. This is exactly what I would anticipate from an Albarino. It's crisp, it's light, it's not super heavy, it's not, kind of making it difficult to pair with or anything like that. And it's very representative of an Albarino. So I would give this a very good rating. It's a mid-priced wine, so it's nothing crazy. It's in the $10 to $20 range, and it is very accessible. I found it in quite a few stores around Boston. So we're going to do this kind of a tasting a few more times and with different styles and types of wines. And we're also just going to look more at what those different varietals are and how they present. But I wanted to give you this as a base. So thank you so much for joining along, and have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.